Alright teman-teman, selamat malam dari Texas. Hope everyone's doing good. So, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start lesson number 3. Woohoo! You guys are making real progress on your Bahasa Indonesia if you've made it to lesson 3. This is going to be in 2 parts. The first part is going to teach you numbers and how to count. The second part is going to teach you how to use them, primarily through shopping and some other really cool stuff with numbers. So, come on, ayo belajar Bahasa Indonesia lagi. Siap? Ayo mulai. So, hope you guys can hear me. They are doing a little bit of construction work next door, and I'm going to go ahead and go through really quick what this lesson is going to be about. So, in part 1, you're going to learn how to count in Indonesian. You're going to count all the way up to 100 billion. And trust me, if you can do it in English, you can do it in Indonesian. The pattern is exactly the same. It's exactly the same. It's not like learning in Chinese or Korean or Japanese where the number system is different. The numbers in Indonesian, the structure is very similar to English. It's super easy to do. You'll be able to learn how to shop, and you will not get ripped off like other foreigners who don't know how to count. This is really important if you go to Bali and you hang out primarily in Kuta or Canggu and some of the main tourist areas over there. You'll pick up over 200 vocabulary words, which is a lot. You'll learn a couple of grammatical expressions and phrases, so you'll be able to say you want to do something or you can do something. And you'll be able to also say whether someone has or doesn't have something. You'll be able to talk about the existence of something and also having something. And you'll learn a lot of depth about Indonesian culture. And what sets this lesson apart from other lessons and you from other foreigners is that you have insight through this lesson about the workings of Indonesia and Indonesian culture. And by having this, it will make you much more prepared and it will give you a much more rewarding experience while you're down there in the country. And then last but not least, most importantly, when you learn numbers, you'll learn phone numbers and you'll learn how to stay in contact with your loved ones as well as your friends and family back in your home country and your new Indonesian friends as well. So it's a huge, huge plus to make it through this whole lesson. Lesson 3 is the longest and it's very, very big and very detailed, but I promise it's not hard. Spend the time doing this and it will pay back in spades for your trip. All right, so we're gonna start this whole lesson off with a cultural note. Since we're doing numbers, we're gonna start off with one using a couple of numbers. So, 5 kali 1 hari. 5 kali 1 hari. So 5 means 5 and 1 means 1. Kali means times, or the counter for times, and hari means day. So 5 times in 1 day. And Indonesians who are Muslim will pray 5 times a day. The very, very devout ones will especially. And Indonesia is not a theocracy. It's not required for people who are not Muslim to stop their activity while Muslims are praying. You pretty much just go on your whole entire day. You live your life as you do. But on Fridays, the Sholat Zuhur is a very, very important time. It's kind of the pinnacle of the week for most of the Muslim people in Indonesia. So about 11:30ish to about 12, people will start getting ready. And then after that, from about 12 to 1, then people will pray and then they'll have lunch. So most commercial activity, places don't close, but people will generally take a longer lunch on Fridays. So if you do go to Indonesia and you have business meetings or you want to meet with somebody, avoid Friday mornings from about 11 o'clock until about 1, because this is a very, very busy and important time for them. All right, so you guys might hear some noise in the background, apologies. But for counting in Bahasa Indonesia, it's very, very straightforward. And it's much simpler than English. And much simpler than studying like Russian or Korean or Japanese, where you have a lot of other counters and kind of depends on what you're counting and the quantity and 2 sets of numbers. It's so much easier than that. Trust me on this. And you'll see in just a sec. So basically, as long as you get the quantity and the item right in Indonesian, you will be understood. So the most important, the number of the things that you want and the thing. That's it. So For example, in Indonesian, here are 4 new words. Kucing, kucing. Remember the C is pronounced as a CH. Kucing means cat. Anjing means dog. It can also mean motherfucker. So be careful if you use this. Ikan is fish, and orang is person. So 4 words in Indonesian, their English translation. In English, you'd say 1 cat, 2 dogs. Remember, you have dog, dogs, add the S to make it plural. 3 fish. Fish doesn't change regardless if you have 1 fish, 2 fish, 3 fish. And then person changes to people, 1 person, 4 people, right? So in English, sometimes the nouns will change form. In Indonesian, it doesn't. You just have the number first and then the item. 1 kucing, 2 anjing, 3 ikan, 4 orang. That's it. Easy, right? And then you're probably thinking, okay, well, yeah, it's easy to count, but how do you know if you've got more than 1 or you have 1? Is it all context? It's not. There's a way to make it so it's very clear it's more than 1. First, you put the number in front of the noun. One way to do it. If you want to be specific, and if you want to be just general, then just double it. Kucing kucing is cats. Anjing anjing, dogs. Ikan ikan, fish. Orang orang, people. That's it. Easy, right? All right, now we're going to jump into some vocabulary. So most of the vocabulary in lesson 3 is going to be numbers, but there are a few other words that are very important to use with numbers. Okay, so one of the most important ones is berapa. Berapa. And after I say the word, try repeating it back a couple of times so you can practice saying it. Even if you're talking to yourself, you're still building that muscle memory. And it's really, really important to build that muscle memory if you want to speak the language fluently. So, berapa in Bahasa Indonesia means either how much or how many. So in English, we have countable and uncountable nouns. For example, we'd say how much money or how many people, right? In Indonesian, they don't have the distinction of things that are countable or uncountable. It's just things, benda. Okay? So 2 example sentences using berapa. We'll do with this first one up here. So, berapa jauh dari Amerika ke Indonesia? Berapa jauh dari Amerika ke Indonesia? And then this is, how far is it from America to Indonesia? Okay, forgot the question mark, sorry. We'll just draw that for fun. Berapa jauh dari Amerika ke Indonesia? Okay, it's this first one. Then the one below, berapa banyak ibu-ibu di sekolah hari ini? Berapa banyak ibu-ibu di sekolah hari ini? Berapa banyak ibu-ibu di sekolah hari ini? How many moms or how many ladies are at school today? Okay, so berapa banyak, how many ibu-ibu, ladies, di sekolah, at school, hari ini, today. Okay? And then below that, nomor. Nomor is number. And you'd say something like nomor HP atau nomor ruang hotel, your hotel room number. Nomor HP is your phone number. So nomor rumah, house number. Siapa nomor HP ini means whose phone number is this? Whose cell phone number is this? Siapa nomor HP ini? Okay, it's kind of informal, but still very common. You'll hear it all the time. And then below that, we have telepon. Telepon. And it means to telephone, so actual verb, call someone, to telephone, or it can be this thing, a telephone. So an example, saya suka telepon bapak saya. Saya suka telepon bapak saya. So I like to call my dad. All right? And then below that, polisi. Polisi is police. It's a cognate. Dia polisi is just saying he, police, but he is a policeman. It's informal. A lot of people will say this, like saya guru, dia polisi. Kamu pilot, kamu pilot. Okay. And then below that we have di. Di means in or at. So di stasiun, at the station, di pasar. So in the bazaar or at the bazaar. And then this box over here, we're going to go through these numbers a few times in this lesson. So repeat them after I say them. Belas. Belas is like your teens counter. Pulu. Pulu is your tens counter. Ratus, 100. Ribu, 1,000. Juta, million. And miliar is billion. So we'll go through all of these throughout the lesson, and most of the other vocabulary in this lesson is going to be numbers. All right, so we have a huge number in front of us right now, and we're going to go over the number structure in Indonesian. I can't speak, but it's exactly the same as in English. So you probably remember third grade or fourth grade, and you learned about ones, tens, hundreds in math class. And that same structure is exactly the same in English as it is in Indonesian. It doesn't change. So we start off, ones, tens column in English, we call it tens. In Indonesian, they call it pulu. And then hundreds, ratus. And then you have your thousands, ribu. Ones, pulu, ratus. And then millions, juta. Ones, tens, pulu, hundreds, ratus. So this number would be seratus. I went the wrong way. Tiga belas. So it's 13, so it's an exception. Seratus tiga belas juta 342 ribu 758. Okay, it's a big number. We're going to take this, we're going to break it down number by number, and you're going to be able to count this in about 20 minutes if you watch all these videos. I promise. And in Indonesia, they use the European standard. So if you go to a shop, you will see a decimal point, not a comma. So you'll see like 42 decimal point 758. And it's not saying it's 42 rupiah, it's saying 42,758 rupiah. Okay? So, the same number, we're going to take it now, we're going to break it up. I went the wrong way again. Apologies. So, first number is 113, seratus tiga belas. Seratus tiga belas. Juta, 113 million, just like in English, right? 342, 342, 300, 340, 40, 2, 1,000, 758, 700, 100, 700, 5, 5, 10, 50, 8. See, you got it. And now we're going to start with the building blocks. We're going to start with numbers 0 through 10. Okay, 0 through 10. You got to start somewhere. And if you're having trouble with numbers in Indonesian, try watching this video several times, get on YouTube, and find things to count and just practice and practice and practice as much as you can. this was so hard for me in terms of learning numbers. I don't know why, but I could not remember 8 in Indonesian, delapan. I could not remember 7, tujuh, and I could not remember 9, sembilan. So those 3 numbers were so hard for me to remember, and it took me a couple of weeks to learn how to do it. So if it takes you a little bit of time, don't worry about it. Perfectly normal, perfectly natural. Take your time and do it right, and try to get the pronunciation correct as well. And it helped me to just write the name of the number and think of like 8 things or 7 things or 9 things when I was counting. Okay, without further ado, here we go. So this number in Indonesian is nol or kosong. Kosong means empty, and it's used a lot for telephone numbers. Nol is 0. Satu, dua, tiga, empat, lima, enam, tujuh, delapan, sembilan, sepuluh. You might realize and look down here, I underlined sepuluh. So remember, puluh is the counter for tens. Se is kind of like 1. In a lot of words, 1 is shortened to se. So it's like 1 tens. 10. Okay, you got this. All right, so now we've got some real world practice. And hopefully you don't have to use this, but this is just an example of using basic numbers in a real world situation. Hopefully you don't have to do this, but it's always good to know. So here's an example. Aduh, bapak jatuh dari sepeda motor. So maybe you hear this. Bapak jatuh dari sepeda motor. Here's some words, just to make this more clear. Jatuh is to fall. Dari, from. Sepeda motor is a motorbike or a motorcycle. So bapak, my dad, or the man, or your host dad, jatuh. This is going to be in past tense, because through context, we understand through context, this guy's saying this. He fell, dari, from sepeda motor. Fell from motorcycle. Waduh, nomor ambulans berapa? Nomor emergency Indonesia. Okay. Nomor ambulans berapa? So say the numbers out loud in Indonesian. Imagine you're talking to someone and somebody goes, nomor ambulans berapa? And you know it because you've practiced and you know this lesson. So what are those numbers? How do you get the ambulance? You say, here's a cheat sheet. 118, right? 118. Sip, saya telepon. Ding, ding, ding. Okay. Next. Hey, some kid just stole my scooter. Some foreigners yelling. Nelpon polisi, nomor berapa? Okay, now we have to call the police. How do we call polisi in Indonesia? So say these numbers aloud. What do we say? We say 110, right? 110. Sip, saya telepon. Boom. Polisi. Silakan datang. Cepat-cepat. Okay, and next. Aduh, there's a cow terrorizing my wedding. This is probably never going to happen in Indonesia, but you never know. Anything is possible, right? Nomor telepon emergency berapa? This is more likely to be used if there is a typhoon or an earthquake or some sort of natural disaster. So, nomor emergency. Okay. Nomor emergency berapa? Itu. Here's your cheat sheet in case you need it. 112. Sip, saya telepon. Okay, practice these numbers over and over and make sure you have all of them down. from kosong all the way to sembilan. All right, so here is another practice activity with smaller numbers. So when you're in Indonesia, you're asking someone for their phone number, you can say nomor berapa or nomor HP berapa. Also, it's better to add pak or bu or mas or mbak. Those are back from lesson 1. Very important titles that you should use when you're talking to someone that you don't really know very well. So mas, nomor HP berapa, or pak, nomor HP berapa, something like that. Okay? So all cell numbers in Indonesia, mobile numbers, will start with 08, 08, 08. And then there are usually 4 digits in a set, just like this. Some numbers will have 5, but most of them have 4. So now, listening practice.
08, 01, 1111, 1111.
Which number is it? Is it the top or the bottom? Bingo! It's the bottom. All right, here's another one. So here are these numbers. Pause the video for a second and try to say the numbers in Indonesian before you go ahead and do the activity. Take a second, pause it, try to think of the numbers first, and then figure out which one is correct. All right, here we go.
0801 1234 1333.
All right, one more time.
0801 1234 1333.
Okay, and it is that one. Oh, I gave that one away. Sial. But
0801 1234 5677.
yep, so those last 4, 5677. Okay, and then last, we have these. A little bit harder.
0801 1234 5678.
Okay, satu kali lagi. Sip. Ayo coba.
0801 1234 5678.
Okay. And yang itu bagus. All right, you're still needing to practice. No harm, no foul. Take as long as you need. Get the numbers down because it's very, very important before you start going up to higher numbers. And don't quit either, because this is the building block to learning Bahasa Indonesia. Once you learn how to think in numbers and count, you've started to become fluent in the language. And once you get that ball rolling, just keep it going, and you're good to go. So this next cultural note is about pulsa. Pulsa. So Indonesia has a form of electronic currency similar to M-Pesa in Kenya. Pulsa is a little bit different though. So most Indonesians will use pulsa to pay for their phone. And they also will use it sometimes for electricity and some other utilities. But if you go to a small shop, a warung, you will see generally the word pulsa, sedia pulsa, meaning this person who works here can sell you pulsa if you have run out. It normally lasts for about 30 days or so. You can use it to call. You can also use it to buy data packs on your phone. And the data packs are a much better value than using data and paying for it directly with Pulsa. If you need more data, buy more Pulsa. Generally, that's how people in Indonesia will live, is they'll buy a data pack with 20 gigs or 30 gigs, and then when they run out, then Pulsa, buy more data. And if you run out you can go anywhere in Indonesia, like to a convenience store or to a shop, and you can almost always buy more, but you have to pay cash. And generally, the small shops like this, the person will charge maybe 3,000 or 5,000 rupiah to do the transaction, but it's just a few cents. So if you need pulsa or if you get a phone in Indonesia, you will have to buy pulsa. And in this next part, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. And forgot this, it's locked to the phone number. So make sure that the phone number that you tell them is right. It's very, very important, because if that pulsa goes to somebody else, then they get the pulsa and you have to try to get it back, and it can be a huge pain, and it's not likely to happen. So now we're going to actually practice buying pulsa. So when you arrive in Bali or Jogja or Jakarta, wherever you are in Indonesia, you will very likely need a SIM card, and you will need to buy pulsa. So here's an example conversation. Selamat malam, saya minta pulsa. So remember, we learned from the last lesson, saya minta nasi goreng, saya minta kopi. The same structure right here, saya minta pulsa. Perfect. Okay, very natural, very polite, good to go. Then the person will say, okay, nomor HP berapa? Nomor HP berapa? And then HP, remember, is your mobile phone, your handphone. When you buy a SIM card, it will have a number at the top left part right here, and this is your phone number. So this SIM card is from Jakarta. I bought this, I can't remember, it was a couple years ago, but it's valid for a certain amount of time, and each SIM card has a phone number. You've not bought a SIM card before, then that phone number is tied to the SIM card generally, and when you buy pulsa or you buy credit, you have to have that phone number to buy the credit. So nomor for this SIM card is right here, this number. So how would you say that number in Indonesian? Kosong delapan lima dua satu tujuh tiga lima enam delapan tiga satu. Okay, that's your phone number. Nomor berapa di bahasa Indonesia? Nya 085217356831. Okay, tell that to the person. You're good to go. Okay, sebentar ya. So, nomor HP sini. Nomor HP berapa? Nomor HP berapa? Nomor saya, or you can say nomorku. 0808. And just slowly take it number by number. Take as long as you need to. They're going to be super happy you're trying an Indonesian. It's going to make their day. And then she'll repeat it back, generally. 0808. 1112. 1112. 2223. 2233. So you gotta be careful, because sometimes I've said the wrong number before and I've screwed this up and I've lost, I don't know, $6, $7 trying to buy pulsa because I said the wrong number and it was gone. And also I've talked to people at the convenience store and they've sometimes put in the wrong number. So always confirm before you get your pulsa. Is this right? Be very careful, okay? Be very, very careful when you're buying pulsa. Make sure you got the right number. Benar? Tidak dua tiga. Minta maaf. Dua tiga. Betul. Right. Maaf ya Pak. Tidak apa-apa. Just like no problem. Everything's good. Practice your numbers and make sure you get them down. And once you do, move on to the next part of the lesson. All right, so now we're going to start the second part of our lesson. We're going to do numbers 10 through 19. Okay, 10 through 19. So another big building block. In Indonesian, pulu is the building block for tens. So tens, 10, 20, 30. All numbers in the tens category. And se is a prefix for a or for one. Okay, it's really, really important to remember that. It's kind of a note. I picked up on that later on, but it will make it a lot easier when you're studying Indonesian and you've gotten a little bit more advanced into the course. So first, 10. And then anything in this first category from 10 to 19, these numbers end in belas, which means teen. Okay? This first group is a little bit complicated, but I promise after this, memorization is very easy and it goes straight to a pattern. 11, 12. Remember, satu kind of changes to se, 11. 12, dua means two, right? So 12, similar in English. 13, and then this has a space. So 11, 12 are one word. 13 is two words. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay? If you're having trouble with these numbers, no worries. Take your time, go back through, review this, find some other videos, and make sure you've got them down before you keep going on. It's very, very important to have these numbers down before you start building more on the foundation. If you kind of got an idea, you can maybe go ahead, but if you're completely lost and you don't understand the pattern, keep practicing before you move on. All right, it's pop quiz time. So, first question. How many players are on the field in a game of soccer? This is on one side. Uh-oh. Numbers are in Indonesian. How many? 11, 12, 10, 15. 11, right? 11 orang. Next question. How old is someone at their quinceañera? Their quinceañera. So it's a Mexican birthday celebration. This is the number right here. How old are they? 11, 15, 16, 18. 15. Bingo. At what age do most people become a legal adult? In most countries. So not in every country, but in most countries. 17, 19, 20, 18. 18. Bingo. Next one. At what age do people become a teenager? 17, 14, 13, 16. Become a teenager. 13. At what age do most Americans learn to drive? If you're from the US, you'll probably get this. If you're not, you might not know. Just take a stab at it. 17, 14, 13, 16. And how many months of the year are there? 12, 11, 20, or 18? 12. And which number is a prime number? Bet you guys weren't expecting this. This is a tough one. 12, 15, 18, 17. A prime number. Sorry if you're not a native speaker of English and you saw this and you don't know what it means. Just Google it or take a guess. 17. 20 kurang 1 berapa? Kurang is minus. 20 kurang 1 berapa? 12, 19, 18, atau 17? 19. 20 kurang 1, 19. And how many days are in 2 weeks? 2 weeks. 10, 19, 14, or 16? 14. If you got 6 to 8, you're doing really, really well. You're crushing it. If you got 4 or 5, keep going. You're making progress. Keep studying. And if you got 3 or less, please, please, please go slowly, go back, and practice this before you move on. Don't give up. I know I told you guys earlier, this took me a couple of weeks to get down. I had a teacher and I had a lot of practice, and it was very, very frustrating. There was a big block in my brain. But once I just figured it out and it clicked, off to the races. And you'll be exactly the same. You got this. Don't give up. Semangat! All right, so this next part is going to be numbers dari 21 sampai 100. Dari 21 sampai 100. Okay, here we go. Ayo. So remember, pulu means tens in English. We're going to be using this a lot for our numbers. It's a really, really important building block. So nomor ini 21. 21. 21. Okay. Next, nomor ini 22. 23. And if I'm going too fast, then please stop or pause the video, take a second to think about it, and continue on. Okay, I'm trying to go at a speed where it's not too fast and not too slow. But if I'm going too slow, then I'm sorry. If I'm going too fast, I'm sorry as well. I'll try to do better. What about this? 28. And this. So nomor ini 30. So you're probably starting to catch the pattern. So 10 with a 1 here, 20 with a 2, 30 with a 3. So hopefully it just clicked. And then you can probably guess what the other numbers are going to be. What is this? This is 36. So 36. And then this 20, 30, 40. And then we have what? 47. And then we're halfway to 100. 50. And then 60. Lagi 70. Lagi 80. Okay. 90. 99, right? And then we have 100. Bingo. So se, just like 10, and 11. Se is like 100, 100. Okay, you're getting there. All right, and then now we're going to go from 101 up to 1000. You've caught the pattern. It's not that difficult. You'll crush it. This will be super easy. And it's a ton of vocabulary and a ton of useful information and vocabulary that you will use while you're in Indonesia every day. Okay, so the pattern in English, 120, 742, 999. In Indonesian, so look at the top one here and then the one over here. 100, 1, se, 100, ratus, 20, 20. Okay, 742, 7, 100, ratus, 40, 40, and 2, 2. 999. Okay, it's very, very straightforward. If you take the numbers, you write them out, and you go English, Indonesian, and just match it up. If you're having trouble, or you are having trouble, hopefully this will help you. I'm trying to teach this in as many ways as I can to make it so the numbers stick and they fit your learning style. If you like to see stuff with numbers, if you like to see stuff written out, activities, best way is for me to look at things in many different ways. So then I have a better understanding of how it works and kind of helps me to figure out, okay, this is the best way for me, and keep it deep in my brain. Hopefully it does the same for you. All right, so now we're gonna use this building block right here, ratus, which is 100. We're going to start off with this one right here. Seratus. They're still doing construction. My apologies. Sorry, hope it's not too loud. Remember, se is a prefix for a or for one. All right. Nomor ini 101. 100, 1. And then we're going to add in pulu to these numbers. 110. Okay. 100, 100, 10. Dan nomor ini 119. 119 atau 119 tapi 119. Okay. Dan nomor ini 150. Okay. Ini 200, right? Dua, two, ratus, 100. Dua ratus. Tiga ratus, bingo. And next, lima ratus, perfect. Sembilan ratus. Number is this. Sembilan ratus tujuh puluh. Sembilan ratus sembilan puluh. Sembilan ratus sembilan puluh berapa? 8, right? And then we've got this classic 999. So 999. So a lot to say. There's a lot of syllables, but the more you practice, the easier it will get. Trust me. Okay? Keep practicing, don't give up. Alright, so now we're gonna go with another set of numbers. Dari 1000 sampai 1 juta. From 1000, 1000 to 1 juta, or sejuta. Alright, it's like it's a big jump, but it's not. It's very, very simple. It follows exactly the same pattern that you've already mastered. So, our prefix we're going to learn is ribu, which is 1,000. And remember, se is used for 8 or 1. A lot of times in Indonesian, not always, but you see it tacked on a number, it can mean one of that thing. Okay, so here we have seribu. So se, 1,000, 1,000. Okay, this number is 1005. 1005. 1016. 1065. 1492. That's not right. Waduh, I made a mistake. 1500. 1500. Salah. I screwed that up. Time to refilm. Oops. 1500. Okay. Baik. Lagi. 1910, right? 1910. And then remember, we've got ribu as our counter. Now we have this as our first number. So, dua ribu. Dua ribu. And then empty. And then here we have 2,500. And then 3,000. And then 5,000. And now we've got world events trivia coming up. Woohoo! Next video. So here's our world events trivia. Let's see how you do. Pop quiz time! What year did the U.S. declare independence from Great Britain? Here are the years, but they're spelled out. So try to practice your reading. 1776, 1505, 1012, atau 1861. Which one? Yeah, baby. 1776. Alright, next one. What year did William the Conqueror conquer England? 1200, 1066, 2023, 605. Which one? In this year, 1066, 1066, or 1066. Okay, what year did South Africa host the World Cup? 2000, 2010, 1819, atau 1990? When did South Africa host the World Cup? 2010. Hopefully that's right. 2010, what I remember. Lagi, what year did World War II end? 1990, 2002, 1945, 1990. Which year did World War II end? 1945, 1945. And what year did Columbus discover the New World? 1990, 1492, 1111, 1440. Which year did Columbus discover the New World? In 1492, 1492. Okay, so if you got 4 or 5 of those, excellent job. You're getting it. If you got 2 or 3, you're making progress. And if you got 1 or less, you need to go hang out with your friends and do more trivia nights. Go have fun. And maybe study some Bahasa while you're at it, when you're free. All right, so now we're climbing the ladder again. Bigger numbers. So if you study Korean or Chinese or Japanese, this is where numbers get harder because you've got a different counter here. In Indonesian, no sweat, it's exactly the same as English. So, 10,000. Here we have 18,000. Remember? First number, 18, right? 18, 18, and then 1,000. 18,000. And then this, 50,000. And then here, just take it and break it apart. Take your time, first number, this, and then this. 70,000, 20. 70,000, 1,000, 20. And then next, what do we have? 90,527. Okay. And then as you see these numbers on the bottom of your screen, practice saying them, because it really will make a big difference in terms of your pronunciation and your confidence in speaking Indonesian. So some of the sounds are a little bit different from English, and it does take some practice, but if you practice for a couple of weeks, you'll start to build that muscle memory, and your Bahasa will be excellent. Okay, and then next set, 100,000. So remember, we had 100 before, which is 100. Now we're just adding 1,000. So 100,000, exactly the same. 300,000, 300,000, exactly the same. And this one too, 370,000. Lagi 500,000. Okay. 500,000, 500. Okay. Lagi 800, 8.000, 800, right here, 8.000, 800, 8.000, dan kosong, kosong, kosong. Oke, ini 999.000. And then, the big one, yang sulit, the hard one, 999.999. Okay, it's a lot to say, and it's very confusing, but when you break it apart, it's definitely doable. You got it. And then next, we have crossed over to the million mark. 1 juta or sejuta. So you have the same prefix, se, sepuluh, sebelas, seribu, sejuta. Okay? Pretty much the same. Just remember that prefix for numbers. Se. And, as I said, 1 juta. Either one. Sejuta is correct. 1 juta is commonly used. So, use both of them. Whatever floats your boat. And if this is hard, please take a break. My voice is getting tired. You have to learn big numbers in Indonesian. And we're going to get to that in 1 second. Okay? This is the most important part of the lesson because big numbers are something that you will use every single day while you're there. And the biggest reason why you have to use big numbers is because the largest bill of Indonesian currency right here is worth about $7. So, ini 100.000 rupiah is about $7. So if I have my wallet, it's in my bag, and I pull it out and I have $50, I have almost 1,000,000 rupiah. So the currency over there is very weak. And when you go to exchange money or you go to buy something, most people are not like this, but there are some bad people out there that go, I can take advantage of this person because he cannot count. And unfortunately, the world is not a perfect place. There are bad people out there. So you have to be careful and you have to learn how to count, or you should learn how to count before you go so you don't get taken advantage of. Now we are going to do a cool activity called Bank of Cool Guy. So, when I was going through this, I realized that I did not have anything about ATMs or foreign exchange in Indonesia. And if you're going to Indonesia for the first time or 100th time, it's very, very important to be aware of some of the risks that you can have with your money and not exposing yourself to getting scammed, keeping as much money in your wallet as you can, and not giving it to other people. You worked hard for it, so you should keep it. All right, so this first part's going to be about using ATMs in Indonesia. And generally, you probably already know a lot of ATM safety. Be careful, make sure nobody's following you into the ATM, make sure there's a security camera, make sure that there's no skimmer or anything like that on there. In Indonesia, ATMs can have skimmers. Just double check, make sure everything is safe and legitimate before you actually use it. The most dangerous place to use an ATM is a convenience store. If you go to a bank, so BRI, BRI, or BNI, BNI, it's generally safer. They will almost always have a camera, and they will also have a small phone next to the ATM. So if there's a problem, you can call the bank and tell them the ATM's not working. And when you take money out of the ATM, you're going to generally get two denominations. You can get 50,000 or 100,000 rupiah. So you can get a maximum of 1,250,000 rupiah, so it's about $83. So it's a whole stack of blue notes generally, or 2,500,000 rupiah. It's a big stack of red notes. And it's a pain carrying this much money, and it's a pain taking out a lot of money from the ATM because you have to do multiple transactions. So if you have a lot of money or you need a lot of cash, then it may be better to exchange money. If you're going to exchange money, we'll go into that in the next part. One last thing before I forget though, if you use an ATM in Indonesia, make sure that you get a receipt. If you have a receipt and there's some sort of a discrepancy of how much money you took out versus how much the ATM says, you've got a record and you can show your bank and you can plead your case. And then I forgot to say one more thing too about ATMs. So most ATMs do have an English option. So if you put your card in, it will generally come up with Indonesian, but there's almost always a button for English. So push the English button or push Bahasa Inggris. You can generally take money out using English. It's much easier. And one last thing too that I forgot is don't forget your card in the ATM. So when you finish your transaction, sometimes it will just leave your card in the machine and you have to hit a button that says release card. If you wait too long, the machine will take your card and you will be completely SOL. So be very, very careful of that also. That's happened to me. And then here's the next part. So foreign exchange in Indonesia. So if you're exchanging money in Indonesia, you need to be very careful. Make sure that you go to either a bank or an authorized money changer that wants to see your passport. If they don't want to see your passport, then that's a huge red flag. It generally means they're going to rip you off and they're going to take a lot of your money. So when you get the money from the actual exchange office or the bureau de change, count every single note and count it at least twice. Make sure that you get a receipt as well, and that receipt has the same number that you have in rupiah in front of you. Once you leave, if you realize it's wrong, you're totally SOL. And if they offer you a really good rate, you're probably going to get ripped off. So make sure, most important things, passport, receipt, count the money, and normal rate. You can always check the exchange rate online before you exchange money. And if there's a big discrepancy in terms of they're giving you more or it's almost the exact rate, be very careful. All right, so we're going to blow through a really quick activity, I guess, what I'm going to call this. So let's say, for example, you go to Bali and you're in maybe Canggu or Kuta, one of the main tourist areas. These are the two main areas where this will happen. So a local or somebody will come and they'll say, oh, I can give you a really, really good exchange rate. Welcome to my bureau de change, or welcome to, this bank. And it's obviously kind of sketchy. This is not nearly as common as it used to be like 10 years ago, but still does happen. So they'll warmly welcome you into their shop. And once you go inside, they'll say, oh, I can give you a really good exchange rate, and it's usually something crazy. They'll basically not want your passport, and they'll basically want no record of the transaction. So they're giving you a crazy rate, no passport, no record of the transaction. Don't go. You need to have all three of those when you exchange money in order for it to be safe for you. So avoid any place like this, and please, please, please only go to some place that will want your passport. Record it, where if you do have a problem, you can actually go and do something. This is one of the biggest problems a lot of foreigners have, and I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube of foreigners that have been ripped off. Don't be one of them. Be smart and be aware of the risks that can happen in Indonesia. Don't let this ruin your trip. Please, don't let it ruin your trip. Go down there, have a good time, but be smart with your money. All right, and then the very, very last part of this lesson, bigger numbers. So, lebih besar daripada 1 juta. Bigger than 1 million. So remember, with big numbers, all you have to do is remember the pattern. So for million, juta, thousand, ribu, hundred, ratus, tens, puluh, teens, balas, virtually everything else is exactly the same. You just keep adding more and more counters here. I'm going to sneeze. So 113 is English. 113, right? 113 juta, 113 million, and then ini semua empty, kosong. So, here's this big number again that we saw from the beginning. Let's crack it this time. So, berapa nomor ini? Pause the video if you need to and take it and break it apart. Seratus tiga belas, right? Seratus tiga belas juta. Baik. Next, lagi 342 ribu 758. Well done, well done, well done. You can read all of this together, or you can read this number and this number and this number. You're making a great, great start to learning numbers in Bahasa Indonesia. Just practice, remember juta and ribu, and you're totally set. Nobody will rip you off. You will be the king of the pasar. Yay! And you can put the Indonesian count out of a job. So put that on your, well, don't put that on your visa application because they might reject it. I don't know if he has a job. But hopefully he does. Because if he doesn't, you do. Now you can go shopping to Grand Indonesia or to Plaza Indonesia and go get your mother something very, very nice on your vacation. And we're going to help you do that in the next part of the lesson. Well done, semangat, dan sampai jumpa lagi. Keep studying hard.